Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a size-inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marley.
As we explore the complexities of the biking world, help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see. And don't forget that all bodies really means all bodies, not just larger bodies, but bodies of all sizes, ages, races, abilities, genders, sexualities, and beyond.
Come along for the ride. Well, hello there, friends. Welcome back to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast. We have a super exciting episode for you today. Really excited for this conversation because it's a topic that I want to learn more about. And I think the All Bodies on Bikes community can learn a lot as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So today we've actually got 4 guests with us. So this might be, it's a little bit exciting, a little bit scary. In the world of Zoom, who knows? We think it's going to work.
It's a party podcast.
Yes. So we've got 4 folks here from Bike On, and Maggie's going to tell you about Bike On in just a second. Actually, let's go ahead and introduce Bike On, and then we'll introduce who we've got with us.
Fantastic. Well, Bike On was founded in 1999 by Scott Pellett in Coventry, Rhode Island. Scott was injured in an accident as a teenager and was very adamant about helping folks of every ability be able to get outside and enjoy adaptive cycling. So starting in his garage, he began one of the first online adaptive sports companies to provide mobility equipment and expert guidance through his personal experience being an adaptive athlete since the 70s.
That's before I was born. Sorry to interrupt.
I know, right? That's so cool.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, you're great. Bike On became a success, which I don't think surprises me very much at all, because this is something that we really need, and it needed to expand quickly. So working with his wife, Lynn, his son, Dan, who we have on the call with us today, and bringing on childhood friend Chris Coyne, they developed a network of inclusive cycling nationwide, and they have grown to become one of the largest adaptive cycling companies in the world, which is amazing. Scott and his wife, Lynn, are happily retired and enjoying cycling down in Florida, but the Bike On is continuing their legacy with new owners, Dan Pellett and Chris Coyne. Coming from a small staff, Bike On has grown to more than 20 employees with reps nationwide to serve this community. And Bike On is not only their name, but they say that it is their mission as well, because everyone deserves to be able to feel the wind in their hair, see nature's beauty, and have a healthy activity they can enjoy with friends and family in an inclusive environment. And that is basically just everything All Bodies on Bikes is about. So we are so excited to have them on the podcast today.
Welcome to the show.
Woohoo!
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce. Oh, go ahead, please.
Sorry, that was awesome.
So I'm going to introduce who we've got in the show. And if each of you just want to give us a little hello, maybe tell us where you're calling in from, and then we'll dig into some questions. So we've got Dan, who Maggie introduced as the co-owner, and his dad was the founder. Welcome to the show, Dan.
How are you? It's great to be here.
Doing well. Remind us where you are at in the world right now.
So I grew up in Rhode Island, but I now live in the Tampa Bay area of Florida.
Awesome. We've also got Kyle, who is the sales manager. And we're going to get into this, but Kyle rides a recumbent trike because he's got knee issues. So Kyle, why don't you go ahead and say hi and tell us where you're calling in from?
Hi, so I'm right near the headquarters in Rhode Island, and I've been with Bike On for a little bit over a decade now altogether.
Oh, wow.
And it's just super fun every day to just meet new people and get them out riding. My favorite part is finding somebody that thinks they can't ride a bike and then getting them on a bike and seeing that big smile. So we're naturally, our missions are the same as All Bodies on Bikes, and we really enjoy what we do.
Yeah, when we got the email from you, I was like, Maggie, we need to talk to these people.
we gotta get in touch.
So thank you so much for reaching out. Also joining us today, we've got Caitlin, who is currently a marketing intern, but it sounds like maybe during this podcast, she just got offered a full-time job. I don't know if that's true or not. But welcome to the show,
No, it's in the
Caitlin.
works. Thank you. Yeah. So I've been here since May of last year. I was a summer intern, and then they asked me, they were like, can you please stay? And then I was like, of course. And then it was again, like last month, they were like, can you please stay full time? And then of course it's like a yes, of course, because how can you not love a company like this? Because we go out, and especially last summer, we did a ton of awesome events where you got to see like a ton of kids get on bikes where they never thought they would be on a bike again. And their parents are like, wait, you're saying that my kid was on a bike for like 2 hours today? And I'm like, yeah, insane, I know. So it's been super fun and exciting. So right now I'm currently working on all the social media for my for Bike On. We're working on updating the website right now, and a ton of other awesome marketing things. So super fun stuff.
Awesome. Thanks
And
for
I'm calling
having
in
us.
from the headquarters right here with all the bikes around me that I can show later on in the call.
Yeah. And we will definitely have some photos linked to this because their showroom is just phenomenal. I think, you know, Caitlin's standing in the middle of maybe 30 or 40 different styles of adaptive bicycles.
So many. Yeah. And we got wheelchairs over here as well, too.
Awesome. And then finally joining us, we've got Eric, who is a sales associate with Bike On. And he is also living with a spinal cord injury and rides an adaptive bicycle. So thanks for joining us, Eric.
Thanks for having us. I saw an Instagram post about your podcast and thought same as you did, I guess, that we had pretty similar missions, and glad you guys are having us on. I'm in North Conway, New Hampshire, in the White Mountains right now.
Has spring come to New Hampshire yet?
Time is it? No, not yet. Little chilly. There's still some snowbanks out there. It's a little. I'll stick with Zwift for another week or two, I think.
That's fair. And I want to come back to that because I think in my brain, I've never even thought of Zwift as a tool for adaptive cyclists, but definitely want to chat about how that works and is it different or can we all ride together and all those things. But let's start out with chatting about Bike On. So maybe this question's for Dan. Maybe who knows who else wants to answer. But tell us about Bike On. You know, I know your father started it, but tell us more about that and tell us about your team today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our company was started in 1999. My father has been living with spinal cord injury as a wheelchair user for 55 around years now. So that's all I've known all my life. He's been a wheelchair user my whole life. He did some wheelchair sports when I was a kid. He did some weightlifting. He was very involved with wheelchair basketball. And I'm not sure if it's true or not, but he does like to hold the title that he won a New England curb jumping competition in the late 80s. So that was always, I never really got to see the award, but I always heard about that. So no, he was very, very involved with sports and had a lot of companions that he met through adaptive recreation and sports. I loved basketball growing up. It was something that we played together. But around, 8 or 9 years old, I started beating him one-on-one, pretty easily. But he didn't let that bother him. But around that same time, he got his first hand cycle. And that really changed everything for our family. Me and my mom immediately got nice road bikes that we could all ride together on. And it was something that we could all do in unison. There was really no boundaries. We would go out to the bike path. We would ride 20 miles. I probably wanted to turn around after 10, being, a little boy. But it was a game changer for us as a family. And we were working with some nonprofits in the late 90s. My dad found ways to raise money for some local kids and get them their first hand cycle. And being the entrepreneur that he was, the internet was kind of just starting. Well, not just starting, but
Just kind of getting going.
E-commerce was coming around. So he said, you know what, I'm just gonna see what happens. And he started a website selling a couple of hand cycles. And our first sale was overseas. And he said, "Oh my God, this is something here. People are finding me from overseas. I think there's a lot of potential." So 24 years later, our business is still, it revolves around customer service, just like it did with it from day one. Like you said earlier, we have 22 people on our team. Over half of those people are living with a disability or mobility impairment. And we're very hands-on with our customers. We kind of almost don't like using that word customers because it really turns into a very friendly relationship. In fact, a recent person that joined our team, Alicia Dana, she is a world-class para-athlete, hand cyclist, and Olympian. We sold her first hand cycle in 1999 or maybe 2000, somewhere around then. In fact, she was like invoice number 5.
Wow.
And 20 plus years later, she joined our team as a sales associate. So we have a lot of experience out in the fields. And what we're all about is really doing demo days, traveling around to different adaptive sports organizations and veterans hospitals and stuff like that, and getting people's butts on bikes, and finding, the safest product that we offer that's going to suit their needs. And that's really, the core of our business. We have, expanded a lot over the last few years, bringing new people onto the team. But at the root of it, they are all, right up our alley as far as their spirit and enthusiasm for adaptive sports and recreation.
That's so cool. And, you mentioned that it is kind of a high touch thing. I imagine, when you're working with folks to get them onto a bicycle, that's already like an intensive thing, but add in, certain adaptations or needs. And I imagine it's not a quick process necessarily to find the bike of your dreams.
Everyone's different. Everyone has a different challenge, a different ability level. And I think it's just kind of assessing, having communication, and making sure that, that product is safe for them to use.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into that a little bit. So if a new customer comes to you, or, I imagine you've got some sort of a contact us form on the website and they say, "I want an adaptive bicycle." How do you, figure out what kind of bike they need to be on? What kind of questions do you ask? Like, how do I know if I'm going to be on a recumbent bike or a hand cycle, or I don't even know what the other options are? Walk us through that process.
I think Kyle can answer that one pretty well.
Yeah, so it all starts off with like an initial conversation, just asking about basics like if it's a spinal cord injury, what their level is, and finding out if they have good dexterity in their hands. Because based off of that, then we have different shifting options and different braking options. Scott actually developed a brake it was one of the first ones where you can, for quadriplegics, where you can pedal backwards to stop. So you can convert pretty much any bike to where you can have your gloves and you can be strapped in and just pedal backwards to stop. So that's like one of our claims to fame. And we also combine it with like DI2 shifting. We were kind of on the forefront of DI2, where we actually have a computer called a Pro Shift that you can log into it, where it'll automatically shift for you by either your cadence or your heart rate. And,
wow.
Oh, wow.
And we did that like probably about 6 years ago. So we really, as soon as like DI2 came out, we hopped on it, and we go over like where the customer intends to ride, what their goals are. And then also funding is the big thing that we have to go over with them to see if they're able to fund the bike themselves, or if there's an organization that'll be able to help with them. But what I like to do is hop on a video call now. And if that's one positive thing that came out of the pandemic, we weren't really doing video calls before. And now I do probably about 6 or 8 showroom appointments virtually a week. And it's cool. I'll talk to somebody in Israel or somebody in California, and from all over, and I'm able to kind of help them, show them the bikes, and just see like let them know, show them the way that you can do this.
That's so cool. I remember the first
Yeah.
time we chatted and you were kind of walking us through the different models. I think my jaw was just like, I had no idea there were so many options out there.
Oh yeah, they're endless.
And the thing that we really try to keep in mind is oftentimes this is someone's first experience, riding this type of bike. Maybe a week ago, they didn't think that riding a bicycle was a reality for them. So you don't want it to be a stinky experience. You want it to be as much fun as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why, we tried to have a wide range of options and adaptations, like Kyle said. And we're always kind of coming up on the fly. Kyle's been with us for 12 years. And it's amazing how far the equipment has come. When my dad first started riding, you kind of jerry rig a lot of things, you made it work. But now with feedback from manufacturers, we have a great relationship with some of our manufacturers, and they're always coming out with constant adaptations and different setups that will really help the end user just have a great and kind of fluid experience. One of our favorite bikes is Madeline. We've been working with them for about 7 years. They are handmade hand cycles in Italy. And they have a really great setup. Kyle, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the great thing about the Madeline is it's custom built completely around you. So anything from the frame, the crank width, your functionality of the bike, they actually do DI2 chin shifting. So you shift with your chin left to right here, and you either use a coaster brake or elbow braking. So really, like any adaptation, anybody that wants to get on a hand cycle, we can put them on. And their transfer height is a little bit higher than a lot of the other models and brands, so it's super easy to get in and out of.
And
And they're
sorry,
great.
just going back to when we say transfer height, you mean transferring from a wheelchair or whatever their day-to-day thing is into the bicycle, right?
Yeah, so from transferring either from a wheelchair, or if somebody is in crutches, just directly from standing up to the ground.
Sure.
And then we have different adaptations available too. Like we do a modified lift seat that's wheelchair height, where they can actually just side transfer, and then it lowers them all the way into the bike.
Oh, wow.
Dang, that is so
re-
cool. I would say I would love to hear from Eric, who I know has some experience with this. Talk to us about your favorite bikes.
Road bikes have gotten really low to the ground, road hand cycles, and like a recumbent, almost like a luge sled position. So it can be a little intimidating to think of how am I going to get out of this thing. So that's what Kyle's talking about. It's great when you're on the road, but getting in and out of a chair can be a bit intimidating. When I first got the lower style bike, I got a milk crate to hop onto, which was like halfway between the bike seat and chair. So a little bit of practice, I could do it now without the milk crate, but it can be intimidating, I guess, to think about how am I going to get on or off of this thing. But we've got the lift seats, and I don't know, I always figured out ways to make it work. But
Eric in recent years has become an awesome hand cyclist. He trains on the Kankomankas Mountain in Conway in New Hampshire, and it is just a brutal climb up. So yeah, I think, Eric, when did you get your newest bike from KBF?
2020.
2020. And
Yeah, I got that like really super recumbent style. Before that, I had ridden more upright styles, and it was I was a little bit hesitant, I guess, to go to the super recumbent style because of the transfers, and thought it would be too low. But once I got on it, I couldn't believe how comfortable and easy it is. Being that reclined is a lot more aerodynamic, so it takes a lot less energy, or you can still put the same energy, same power out, but you just go faster. So,
Sure.
what was the longest climb last year?
Well, I rode the Kank over and back one day. I did both. I did it twice. It's about 2,000 feet of climbing from my house up. But one of the things that made that really possible is the 50-tooth cassettes that they've started putting on mountain bikes almost standard now. I put one on last year, and it makes climbing, I can climb more and I can climb steeper terrain. So it opened up a lot more terrain, a lot more places I can go. Whereas on the older cassettes, with the hand cycles, with the drive wheel being out front in particular, there's a point where physics doesn't let you go uphill anymore, I guess. You just lose traction. But with the bigger cassette, it makes the application of power smoother, and I can climb much steeper terrain without a whole lot more effort and do it more and more. So it definitely comes in handy in the mountains here, and yeah, it opens up a lot more options.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was just looking at your website, and when we think about adaptive bicycles, I don't think a lot of us realize how many options there truly are. There's hand cycles, which we were just talking about. There's recumbent bikes, adaptive cycles, which I would love to get into the difference with these, talking about the Van Ram and freedom concepts and all those. But then there's also like racing wheelchairs and all sorts of stuff. So I guess talk to us about the differences. There's tricycles, there's the bowhead that we've seen a couple like elite athletes use, the Van Ram. I had a friend just they got funding for one of those for one of their kiddos.
Cool.
Talk to us about the differences there and what it allows folks with different levels of mobility to do.
Yeah, sure. Really, there's a bike for everybody. We can get 99.9999% of people enjoying the activity of cycling one way or another, whether they're actively pedaling or, kind of just going along for the ride, or maybe a combination of both. Like we said a little bit in the last topic, the manufacturers are really pushing the standard on what is out there. So those Van Ram bikes that you mentioned are really great. We've been working with them for about 7 years now as well.
Can you give us like a kind of a visual of what is special about that bike, or just talk to us about what's special about that one?
Yeah,
Maybe
just go around and show some.
Caitlin has to take off in a little while, but if we can do a walkthrough of the showroom.
Yeah.
Caitlin, do you want to
Might
go
be
by?
easier to visualize it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm right by
nice.
some of the Van Rams actually right now.
Yeah, and
Well,
we'll
that
kind
was
of talk
easier.
listeners through it because it is a podcast. We don't have much of a
Yeah.
video component to it. But however we can talk folks through this, I think will be helpful.
Right.
I'm gonna sing a
Here's it.
song of an audio representation of each of the bikes that we're getting ready to show.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be a great version. So
So
this
this
one
is
right here,
Oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
if whoever wants to go and talk about it, that's fine by
No,
me. I will just
bike as Caitlin shows it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
So
Kyle,
So
go
this
right
is a
ahead.
fun though, and this is my favorite bike that we sell almost, because almost anybody can ride it. It's a side-by-side tandem, and you can actually be an active participant and ride, or they have a special footboard where you can just go along for the ride. So it just opens up the whole world to almost anybody that wants a bike. And they actually did a study with the Harvard Chan School of Medicine about cycling with the effects of Alzheimer's, and they found that some folks that rode this towards the end of the 6-month study got some of their cognitive ability back.
Wow.
Wow.
Social aspect of being next to each other. And it just fills a role for like anyone from like a kid that might be on the spectrum that wants to ride with his mom or dad or her mom or dad. They can actually be right next to each other instead of being in the back where there's not really any participation and socialization. And there's, because the frame's centralized, there's no step over in the frame. So it's very easy for anybody to get in and off of it. And behind that, that's the Velo Plus. So that is the wheelchair transporter bike. That's another fun one where it actually acts as a drawbridge,
Cool.
where you can roll the wheelchair down, and you can put 5 different participants or more in one session on there because they use their own wheelchair. So you cut down on the transfer time. So for VAs, special needs schools, it works really well, just to get folks out riding.
And to give podcast listeners an idea of what we're looking at, Maggie, do you want to describe it? Do you want me to try and describe it? This is the first time ever seeing one of these, so it's kind of fun.
This is my new favorite game, is trying to describe things to people without them being able to see it. But basically what we're looking at is a bike with, like, I'm thinking of a cargo bike, but instead of a basket on the front, you've got like a platform with a ramp on it. So you can get the wheelchair right up on there, and then you've got somebody like sitting right behind them, driving the bike. Did I describe that well?
I think
I
so.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah,
Kyle,
That's amazing.
Does that have electric assist, Kyle?
I'm sorry.
Is that an e-bike?
It is an e-bike, yeah. All Van
Yeah.
Rams come with either power assist or without. Generally, because they are larger and you're pedaling for two, we always sell with the power assist.
Yeah.
Just makes it easier for anybody to hop on and pilot the bike.
Yeah, electric bikes is a big game changer, I think, for
Absolutely.
like the big cassettes and the Di2 shifting. It just opens up a lot more terrain and opportunities.
Definitely. Caitlin, can you show us a couple more bikes since we're in the showroom right now?
100%.
Heck yeah.
We'll play the game of
got-
trying to explain them.
A lot of hand cycles right here. I was showing this one earlier, which actually might be cooler to show, which is the Madeline X Trail. If Kyle wants to talk about this bad boy.
Yeah, this is a beautiful like all road, all trail bike, rear suspension. It's got a higher up seating position and it's more upright to easily get in and out of it. And for somebody with a lot of trunk power, it's very easy to pedal, very comfortable. Has a 750 watt motor, so it's really powerful, and you
Okay.
can get up and down any of the trikes. We actually took a similar one to the Bentonville ride, and people loved it. It was, what's that playground called? I know that isn't that near you folks?
Yes, I live in Bentonville. Maybe Kohler. I mean, honestly, there's a million different bike playgrounds around here, so I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if they
Kohler's
were
really
ripping
fun.
all over town.
Yeah, we took that to Kohler, and it was incredible. And it was like really fun to just see folks just rip it up and get out of it. I was on my recumbent trike that's full suspension, and just kind of following them on the riding. And the rocky parts got kind of difficult, but it was really great once you get around the big corners. And just what you folks have done out there to make it more. It's like 95% accessible now, they say.
Wow.
And yeah, we worked with somebody from Ozark Adaptive out there who actually showed us the trail. And it's really cool that the trails are just designed for everybody. Whereas some of the older designs, they have a regular trail and then an adaptive trail separately.
Yeah.
This one is kind of getting into what they're starting to do, the universal trail design. So
Mhm.
there's no separate trail, there's no separate parking lot. It's just everybody can ride it, which
Yeah.
is what we love.
Fantastic.
I had the opportunity last summer to go to Knoxville, Tennessee, and to a women's mountain bike festival out there. And there was a big contingent of adaptive riders. And so we got to go on a group ride and learn, what it's like. I forget what they call it, like the spotter, basically just somebody riding directly behind. So in case there is like an off camber section, to be there. So that way this person doesn't go tumbling down the mountain.
Oh yeah, it was probably Catalyst Sports that was out there.
It was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they are an incredible organization. We just found out about them like about 2 years ago, and we actually did the Knoxville AMTB ride last year.
Mhm.
Some beautiful trails out there too. That's what I do. I'm on the road most of the time, and I love just like traveling and going to different places. And I feel like I work for Publishers Clearinghouse sometimes because I get to deliver and show up a bike and just see the smiles on their faces.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's talk
Uh,
about that a little bit because these bikes are not cheap. And that's one of the first questions that you have on your website is about funding. And so for a lot of these folks, who maybe have a spinal cord injury or a kiddo with some needs, how does funding work? You mentioned some organizations. Talk to us about that.
So we work a lot with the Kelly Brush Foundation is by far the biggest spinal cord injury organization. They're right up in Vermont, and we're really close with them. We've had a relationship with them for over a decade now. And basically, if you have a spinal cord injury, they'll do everything they can to help fund a bike for you. But it's difficult because they're not like the $300 beach cruisers. They go into the thousands of dollars. And once you get the adaptations like wireless shifting or Di2, it can get really costly. So Kelly Brush is a really good one. There's also Challenge Athletes, and then there's a lot of kids organizations. Like we work with the Rhode Island Shriners Trust locally, and also with Make-A-Wish. That's my favorite because I actually like I delivered one to the Make-A-Wish Castle in New Jersey, and they actually had like Mickey Mouse was there for the kid, and they had like an entire party for them. So that one was like really fun. And the girl spoke through her iPad, so she like was just like go go go, and they were doing the ride, and it was supposed to be like a like an hour drop off, and it turned into like 3 hours because she just wouldn't get off of it. So, but I was having so much fun. I was like, and finally her dad's like, Kyle has a 5-hour drive home. We have to let him go now. So things like that are just like, warm my heart and just make me love doing what I do.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot going on, and you guys are really, really good at figuring out a bike that will work for nearly anybody. But I would love to hear, from whoever on the call, about maybe some opportunities that are going unmet in the adaptive cycling world,
Yeah.
or things that could continue to be improved upon. Where do you see the need for further improvement?
I think one thing that I would love to see a push for is rideshare programs in major cities having more adaptive cycles. I think there is so many people out there, whether they're living there locally or could travel to a city, knowing that these bikes were available, and it would totally be a game changer. They are expensive products. Not everyone can afford them, but I think a lot of funding dollars could be spent on adaptive cycles, and seeing those used in the community in a large city is, I think, so rewarding for everyone on so many levels. For those people that are funding that money, whether it's whoever it may be, seeing those actual bikes out in the wild, the people on them smiling, it's a very wonderful thing. We've been working with Johnson Wales University. Caitlin is actually about to graduate from there as well, and they're starting an adaptive program
Super cool.
at their Providence campus, and we are hoping that the new mayor does have some interest in helping. I spent a lot of time in my late 20s riding around the city of Providence. It's an awesome bike friendly city, but there's not much going on for adaptive riders. And I just seeing 20 plus years of the positivity that adaptive cycling can bring to not only that end user, but everyone surrounding them and that are involved in their lives. I just think it's a no-brainer.
You know many cities that currently have an adaptive fleet as part of their ride sharing?
So I know that the city of Chicago are preparing to buy a couple Funticos or some tandem style bikes.
Awesome.
So I think that's big. I mean, Chicago is a major city.
Yeah.
And hopefully they will be able to shine light on that. It looks like Kyle's raising his hand, so he might know of some too.
Oh, so yeah, there's also in Scranton, there's called the Lackawanna Heritage Valley, and it's like exactly what we're looking to do in every city because it has 4 hand cycles, 4 recumbent trikes, and a side-by-side tandem that anybody can go. It's right on their Greenway Trail, and you can rent it for anybody, and it's great because getting somebody over the phone or in the video to like just to say you can ride this, it's still difficult because that shadow of the doubt, especially when you're spending so much money for a bike, it's just difficult to help get over that hurdle. But with programs like that, somebody can get on a recumbent or get on a hand cycle, a side-by-side tandem, and just kind of get introduced to the sport, fall in love with it, and then call us to get their bike of their dreams.
And what was the name of that one? We'll definitely put a link to it in the show notes.
It's called the Lackawanna Heritage Valley.
Okay. I might have to have you spell that out for me, but we can do that after the show.
Oh, sure.
I might be wrong, but I think Portland, Oregon also has some adaptive bikes as part of their Bike Town bike share.
Ironically, I think Portland, Maine might too. The
Kyle,
Portland.
can I talk about the Portland Wheelers and
Yeah,
kind of
Portland.
that?
Yeah, so Portland Wheelers there's a similar bike that is actually, instead of rolling your own wheelchair onto it, the front of the bike is a wheelchair. And that's great because the front is actually no wider than an everyday chair. So for families, they can ride somewhere like downtown Portland or really anywhere and lock the back up just like a regular bike, but use the front as a push wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
So, so for individuals and families is great, and for Portland Wheelers is great. They have about 10 of our bikes up there, and every day they go to a different assisted living facility and just get seniors out riding, and they have super fun. They decorate all their bikes, all different colors. They have a name for each one of their bikes, which I can't recall what they name them, but they just love like getting elderly out riding, and it's one of the oldest programs that we've worked with, and they're really great.
Wow. I'm just looking at their website now. And in 2022, they did 2,389 rides. And
Yeah.
just the photos on this main page are honestly bringing tears to my eyes. Seeing people smiling and the joy that we know that bikes bring to all of us.
Yeah.
Really bringing it to older folks and a different audience. This is just like making my heart sing. I am so grateful you're sharing all this with us, and we in
Yes.
turn get to share it with our audience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it-
we love Aaron.
it truly is my dream job, and I think everyone else's dream job on the call. You know, I realized I wasn't going to be in the NBA very early on in my life, but what I couldn't pick a better thing to do, because every single day there's a new story, a new face, a new smile, and it's all through the power of cycling. So there's nothing better than that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. We love that about bikes.
I
For
would
sure.
love to hear how other folks got into the world of adaptive cycling.
Yeah.
You know, especially you, Caitlin, coming from the university. And how did everybody get involved with it?
Yeah, I mean, I got insanely lucky coming here. I was just looking for internships for the summer, and I just, of course, applied to everywhere. And I just stumbled upon the Bike On listing that had only been up for like a couple days, applied, and immediately Vanessa reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like, let's set up an interview." And immediately we both clicked. Both of us like love carbs, Taylor Swift, and we're both not like cyclists either, but like we absolutely love like this whole world that you guys have built here, where you're just like getting people on bikes, and it's been really, really fun. And I've been extremely lucky to be here, and I'm so happy because it's been like everyone's like asking me at school, they're like, "Oh, like what's your internship?" And I'm like, "So it's called Bike On, and we do adaptive bikes, and it's really cool, and like definitely look into it because like they're so cool. If you know anyone who can like use an adaptive bike, reach us, like find us, because there's so much that we can do, and it's super duper cool."
That's
But
so
I
cool.
love it.
It's kind of funny. Our podcast guest last week, Meg Fisher, is a paracyclist, actually a Paralympian. And she, I think, told us 10% of the world lives with some sort of mobility impairment. So I think a lot more folks than we realized could actually be benefiting from an adaptive bicycle.
Absolutely.
100%.
What about you, Kyle? How did you get involved?
So Bike On, it's really like a family company. I've been friends with Dan since probably we were like 10, and then Chris, the co-owner, this around the same time, and we grew up together. And I spent, in high school, I saw Scott's bikes in the garage, like that's where he was working out of at the time, and just like loved the idea of like helping people. And Chris, our co-owner, was like their first full-time mechanic employee, and he started building the bikes in the garage and helped it expand. And Vanessa, his wife, is our marketing manager, so we're a pretty close knit team. And they like I started just like part time, just to like save money for vacation, and I was a bartender for about 14 years, and just merged into it and just fell in love with it. I've been doing it full time for ever since then, and I love going to different VAs, and just like actually the rides are what drives me and the
And
customer.
you mentioned this in our like pre-talk when we were getting everything ready, but you actually use a recumbent trike as well, right? For some knee issues?
I do, yeah. I have knees and like slight balance issues, and I can still ride an upright bike, but only a couple miles to where I'll get in severe pain. And the recumbent, probably about 7 years ago, I started riding recumbents pretty much full time, and it just opened up the world to where I've done like century rides. The Best Buddies Challenge is like my favorite one. Like it goes from Cape Cod to Boston, and like the 100 miles in the day, you're not going quite as fast as you are on a two-wheel bike, but you can survive. It's like riding on a couch. It's just so comfortable. And it just allowed me to like get out there much more often than I would be able to.
Maggie, I think we need to check out this Best Buddies challenge.
Yes, that sounds fantastic.
Eric, let's hear your story.
I had been a downhill mountain bike racer back in the 90s and was living in Vermont, working in construction, riding my bike every day I could in the woods. But January 2000, I crashed my Jeep, knowing myself, I'm sure I didn't have a seatbelt on, and broke my back at T7 vertebrae level, so about just below my rib cage. And the rehab hospital I ended up in Boston was great with adaptive sports across the board. I probably heard about Bike On then, just as they were getting started. Initially, I started pushing racing chairs in 5, 10Ks, marathons up and down the East Coast while I was at UMass Lowell. When I moved up here to the mountains, because I was also learning to monoski, which is a whole nother, skiing sitting down with the spinal cord injury is a whole nother show probably. But yeah, when I moved to the mountains, it's a lot tougher to push those racing chairs in the mountains. There's no gearing on them. It's just like brute force. So that's when I kind of made the switch to a hand cycle. Having that gearing lets me ride just about anywhere here in the White Mountains. So I made that switch, like I said, about 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. And I've been riding more recently, I guess more serious the last 4 or 5 years. But yeah, since I moved to the mountains, I've definitely gone back to the bike.
Very cool. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And Dan, we know that your dad was instrumental. Anything else you want to add on that? We don't want to forget you.
No, I think I've been a part of the company since day one. It really has changed everything for me and my family. So yeah, I'm completely 100% in on adaptive sports. I wanted to go back to Eric. He was a KBF grant recipient, which is that fund for spinal cord injury athletes to get bikes that Kyle mentioned before. And I think
Kelly Brush Foundation.
Yes, Kelly Brush.
Awesome.
And,
You're using the interior slang.
Of the teacher.
That was too internal, huh? Yes. Yeah, I think Eric got his first 2 hand cycles from us. I know.
Well, my only new one, I guess. The first couple ones I got from friends secondhand.
Okay.
But yeah, in 2000, I got a new one from you guys. In addition, I guess, 2019, I ended up with a pretty bad pressure sore on my tailbone, which is kind of common for anyone with spinal cord injuries or, lack of sensation in places in your body. My theory is I got it from riding my upright bike too long and was like sitting on my butt without for too long. As my more older upright bike, I would go out and ride for 4 or 5 hours in the mountains, and got this pressure sore that got infected. And listened to my wife and the doctors. I was on my deathbed. I was like spent 3 weeks at Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine that summer trying to get this thing healed up. And so when it did, I said, well, I gotta get a different kind of bike. Take some off my tailbone, and the more recumbent style, like Kyle said, like recumbent foot power bike, it's like laying on the couch with pedals. For me, it's in front of me, in front of my chest. So Kyle would be at his feet, but it's super comfortable and disperses any kind of pressure throughout your whole body, and it's not in any one point, I guess. So it hopefully will keep me from getting any more skin issues like that. But
Yeah.
I guess one thing I learned after spending a couple of weeks at a time in bed is that you lose a lot how much upper body strength I lost and needed going forward. I mean, I always knew I needed to be strong since my spinal cord injury, but so but I could value it more, maybe. I guess now that I'm 20 years into it, that as I get older, I'm going to need to be stronger. Now that I'm 40 versus 20 when I first got injured, so that's why I've been taking biking a little more serious these last couple of years to maintain reasonable fitness, I guess, and be able to, move around throughout the normal day and be on the bike as I get older.
And Eric is also one of our leaders for our Hand Cycle Zwift group ride.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Something we just started. My wife asked me how many I don't know. Did we start it 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago? I've lost track. But I was able to pick up a Wahoo Kicker smart trainer, and on Wednesdays, typically I've been hosting asbikeon.com on Zwift, a group ride for whoever wants to join us. We have some on hand cycles, some on two-wheel bikes. Zwift, I think, was the first of the metaverse, I guess, cycling platforms to develop a hand cycle avatar. So that's an option when you're picking your bike in your garage, is to pick a hand cycle. So we've been hosting Wednesday night rides. This week, I've got it scheduled for tomorrow because I'm shooting a story with a local TV station on Wednesday this week. But normally it'd be Wednesdays around 5. I don't know, I just kind of pick a route at random. We've been doing an hour, but you can pop in, pop out. We've had folks from British Columbia, and I'm in New Hampshire, and I think someone from the warehouse there joined us one week. So we're trying to get that.
We will include a link to that in the show notes. So if folks want to join, is there anything special they need to do, or just join in and join the party?
We have some upload instructions on our Instagram on how to connect your hand cycle to the kicker and then get going.
Awesome.
We also have Facebook events each week. I post one that will just link you to exactly the steps of how to join, and then also a link to the Instagram reel that we made a few weeks back of exactly how to set up your own account and then set up your own Zwift ride. It's super cool.
Very cool.
With the trainer down backwards, because the drive wheels in front, so you got to do everything kind of in reverse. But it's pretty simple and straightforward with the wheel on trainer like that. With the direct drive ones, it gets a little more complicated, but it's still possible. And then just look for bikeon.com just search for us on Zwift. I'm not sure if there's a better way to find us or not.
We'll include a link to it in the bio, or in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about everyday cycling. We're talking about virtual cycling. Event specific. Are there any races that are exceptionally adaptive cycling friendly? If there aren't, how can we encourage race directors to be more adaptive cycling friendly?
I think that from what I've been hearing, gravel organizers have been really good. I've heard Steamboat Gravel.
Yeah.
There's one in Kansas last year. I don't know if it was Unbound or what it was, but I believe USA Cycling has just announced the gravel national championship and is including para divisions. So
awesome.
Then I know this year for the first time there's a paracycling World Cup in Alabama, which seems like a strange place but in the adaptive cycling world, it's not that strange, but for general cycling it might be. But there is a World Cup tour, there's the Paralympics, and I think out in California, there's a few more. Redlands and Sea Otter might have paracycling divisions. I'm not 100% sure on them, but hand cycles and racing chairs, we kind of occupy a gray area in general events, I guess, because some foot races will include hand cyclists too. So that's what I'm going to be in the Boston Marathon in 3 weeks, I think. A few of our other sales folks will be too.
Will you be racing?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, good luck.
Thanks. I qualified last spring at the Burlington, Vermont Marathon. We had a customer, that was part of the trip to Burlington, was to check in with a customer, and I decided to do it on the same weekend as their race because I could. So I qualified last year, but missed the registration deadline. I thought I'd have like a week or 2 or 3, and then I went to register and it was too late. So the Challenge Athletes Foundation, though, in their newsletter a couple of weeks ago mentioned that they had been given an entry for an athlete from the greater Boston area with a qualifying time. And I said, well, if Northern New Hampshire is greater Boston, I'm interested in it. We can do that. So it's kind of a last minute thing. The distance for me isn't a big issue. It's to be like the intensity, I guess. And I haven't really been outside on my bike in 6 months. So that might be the first day I get outside. We'll have to see what the weather does the next few weeks. But I know a few of our other sales folks are going to be in Boston, and
the Boston Marathon is a well-established hand cycle race. So they'll be going fast. We have I think 5 team members from our sales staff and directors board on there. I think Steve this year said he wanted to finish like in an hour and 15. So they're going to be flying.
Wow.
And we'll be there in our bike on gear, supporting the whole crew and cheering everyone on. We're really excited.
Well, we will be supporting you guys from afar.
Yeah.
For sure on that.
I just love how casually Eric was just like, oh yeah, I'm the Boston Marathon. I'm just going to be doing that because just might as well.
I tell you, he's scaring some of our other sales reps that have been riding it for years. They're like, I can't believe how many watts that Eric has been producing, because that's a big thing. Like, they're all counting your watts and your measure. Like, they all, Eric's gonna have a tough time catching up with you.
Doubting the accuracy of that. I got to figure out what's been going on with the Zwift thing. And some days it's like super high, and I think, oh, of course I'm super strong, and then it goes to like 50, and I'm like, what's wrong with me?
So I have the same issue where I feel like I'm like riding incredibly hard, and Zwift's like, great job, 75 watts, and I'm like, oh no. That was like a 400 watt effort. I mean, realistically, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I also have the same issue.
Yeah.
Off the Bluetooth on my phone completely and see if that gives me like steadier numbers. Because yesterday I did like a 3-hour ride with another hand cyclist, maybe even a few hand cyclists, but the first hour I was doing like 200 watts, and then we took a quick break, and all of a sudden I couldn't get above 60. So
who knows?
Something's going on. Hopefully I'm right in the middde. I'd be happy if reality was right in the middle, but
whatever the highest rating is the one to go with. So just
exactly. Yes. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap things up a little bit differently. We normally ask folks a couple specific questions, but I want to switch it up this week since we do have multiple guests, and I would love to talk about what is something that you wish more folks knew about either adaptive cycling, adaptive riding, hand cycling? I would love to hear, just real quickly from each of you, what's something you wish more folks knew about?
Well, I think that I just wish more folks were open to the idea of having everybody be able onto the bike path, because we do still run into some issues where, I ride up with Spalding Rehab up in Boston, and they do another ride up on the Cape. And there are a lot of cyclists that are kind of like a little aggressive against the recumbents and the hand cycles, because, our riders are generally going like 6 to 8 miles an hour because it's a leisurely ride and they're new to it. So a road cyclist that's going 22 miles an hour, in the past, they haven't been so kind and open.
Sure. Yeah.
Just like screaming on your left and like, things like that. I have seen it turn around to there's more positives than negatives, but I want to erase all the negatives eventually.
Yeah.
I'd have to say just awareness. There are so many people that I show the bikes or talk to about the bikes that say, I had no idea this existed. Let me get on it. In the world of Amazon, people want everything instant, and they probably want to get it from an app, and we're not there yet. But I think just going around and demoing the products and spreading awareness is the key, because there's always a way to get the bike, whether it's through funding or some even crowdfunding, or searching online for a used one until one pops up in your budget. Adaptive cycling is 100% a game changer for so many people, in so many different types of people. So I just wish there was more awareness, but there certainly are. I'd love to tell one quick story.
Please, yeah. You do have time.
Okay. So when I was just a little kid, I remember I have this very vivid memory. We went to a hand cycle clinic at a summer camp in Newport, Rhode Island called Shake a Leg. And I had a lot of fun there. There were kids there close to my age, and they were trying hand cycles for the first time. And it was a blast. And on the way home, I remember driving across the Newport Bridge and saying to my Mom, can we go back next week? And she looked at me and she said, well, Dan, this camp doesn't happen again until next year. And I said, what do you mean? They don't get to hang out with their friends until next year. And, I think that was the end of it. And I went back next year and had a great time. But now I look online and there are new adaptive sports programs and rides and accessibility events popping up every single day. So, kind of counter to what I said, we're not on everyone's radar yet. It's really, this world is accelerating at a rapid pace. And it's because of people like everyone on the call, Kyle, Eric, Caitlin, and even the two of you. I can tell that you're super interested in what we're talking about. We got a couple tears on the podcast today. And, but that's really what it's all about is just kind of pushing pushing people's radars and getting more exposure for these bikes out there.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Eric, what about you? What's something that you wish more people knew?
Not be intimidated by it. I guess there's a type, whether you want to ride on mountain roads like I do, or a golf course, bike path, whatever. There's a different type of bike, and there's different adaptations that we can make it work for anyone. It's not as hard as it looks, I guess. It's not as scary as.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all so much for your time.
Yes.
We will put links to all the things we talked about in the show notes. But before we go, where can folks find you if they want to look up more themselves? Your website is bike-on.com, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
And where do they find you on social media?
Instagram is bikeon.com, spelled out, bikeon, DOTCOM. And I believe our Facebook page is just /bikeon.
Awesome. Well, hey guys.
Search for bikeon.com on Zwift.
Oh yeah, and search for bikeon.com on Zwift. I think you're going to get a few new folks attending your weekly rides.
Mm-hmm.
I myself will definitely try and join one. But thank you so much for joining. And that is all for this week's episode of the podcast. Make sure you leave us a rating, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is, and tell your friends about us.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is an All Bodies on Bikes podcast powered by Feisty Media. The show is produced by Maggie and Marley and edited by the team at Feisty Media. Thanks for listening.